Welcome back, sports fans. Today we're back on the fourth quarter finish podcast, and today I have Andrew A.T. Taylor, the one and only from Central Michigan. He's here to talk today about his journey, about what he's kind of went through, and I'm super excited to introduce him. And without further ado, Andrew, I'll let you have the floor.
Yeah, absolutely. So as you heard here, I'm Andrew Taylor, aka AT, is kind of the nickname that I've been given. I went to Caledonia. I went to Caledonia High School. I played 3 years on the varsity team there. From there, I went to Central Michigan University. I had my freshman year cut short due to COVID, so only got to throw a few innings there. And now I'm pitching for the Houston Astros organization, just kind of living the dream. Yeah.
And it's just incredible what you've been able to accomplish so far in your career. And we're gonna get into everything that's on your horizon, that's in your past. It's all gonna be included. So I'm super excited for this interview, guys, and we're gonna get into it. So starting off, Andrew, this is kind of the first question always ask people is, what was your start? How did Andrew Taylor, the Houston Astros second round pick, how did he get his start pitching?
Yeah, honestly, it wasn't so much of my parents kind of forced me to do this. You know, you hear a lot of that like, yeah, you're chucking the ball, chucking the basketball, volleyball, whatever it may be, baseball, softball in the yard. It's like, you should play baseball. It was just kind of something that I just felt deep down. Like my dad played back in high school. He was a pitcher, he was an outfielder. My mom played sports all in high school, played volleyball and basketball. So it wasn't so much of a they forced me to play. It was kind of something that I like to do. It was fun hitting off the tee, you know, when you're a little kid or when you get to coach pitch. And as you kind of get older, you kind of narrow down your path. But it was more of it was just kind of an athlete. I've been blessed with a little bit of size too, so no complaints there. And I was, yeah, like I said, I've just been blessed. And my parents were kind of like, do whatever you want to do. If it's baseball, it's baseball. If not, that's fine.
That is awesome. And we'll get into that later for sure about, your family and the impact they've had on, you and your career obviously. But it's kind of the same story with so many athletes, just how much your family means to your career leading up. It's awesome to hear. And it's great to have that you have that support structure. I gotta ask one question, and this is the one obviously on everybody's mind, but did you have the little wiffle ball pop, the wiffle ball pop where you press the foot pedal and then it pops the ball up and you hit it? That's obviously the question we're supposed to ask here. So
That's
that's
yeah,
that's
the
the one.
important.
But
I don't know if I had one of those. Honestly, it was my dad was kind of heaving them in there, throwing them past me for as long as he could, to be honest.
gotcha. So it was just trial by fire, just right into the
Exactly.
fire. That's
Yep.
and I think that's why you're pitching in the minors and I'm doing a podcast. So anyways, that's awesome. Of course. So, you know, pitching obviously is such an incredible talent. It takes a lot of skill to do it. What did Caledonia mean? And obviously Caledonia has so many different training programs that they work with, trainers. What did that whole growing up process in Caledonia do for your career?
Yeah, honestly, so kind of touching on both of those, they're kind of intertwined. The head coach at the time, Pat Gillis, he was also my travel ball head coach growing up. Ever since I started playing when I was 13, and he was an assistant coach. And then when I turned 14 and 15, he was my coach for high school, and then my coach for travel ball at that point. I played for Diamonds under Billy Peterson there, who
Okay.
also had a very big impact on. So we'll get into my recruiting process and all of that that fun stuff. But those two kind of intertwined, helped me build chemistry with some of the guys that I played with, not only in summer ball, which is kind of more solely focused on you, but also when you get to high school ball, obviously it's a team and you're trying to make it as far as you can. So kind of building the team chemistry with not just the players, but also the coach too. Really,
That's awesome. And yeah, Caledonia has one of the best baseball, like, I guess, training programs, like, again, intertwined with everything. I've always heard great things about the baseball programs that we have, and a lot of guys that came through Caledonia, played at the next level, the college level, and obviously you're one of them. So there's a lot of them. But it's awesome to hear how much that helped in your career. But I got one question. So in high school baseball and in the travel ball and everything like that, how often is it, coaches are telling you, hey, throw this pitch more often, or take us into a little bit of the dynamic between you, the catcher, and the coach. Like, how does that dynamic work?
Yeah, I mean it's kind of a interesting dynamic, like you had mentioned. When you're a little bit younger, the head coach calls pitches, and then kind of as you get older to I believe when I was a senior, I didn't call all of my pitches, but it was to a decent amount where Coach Gillis was just like, hey, get out there, go compete, like go throw what you need to throw, that kind of thing. And then once you get to college, I didn't really call any of my own pitches. The head coach kind of called them. And I mean, I obviously as a pitcher you can shake, or a catcher you can shake as well.
Hmm.
But yeah, kind of as you get older and you build that level of trust, which came with the chemistry and everything.
Hmm.
Kind of you already know what the head coach is going to call, so you're confident in that pitch to begin with. And for me, it was always the fastball. Like it wasn't necessarily 100 miles an hour. I've never thrown 100. I've never thrown even above mid 90s or anything like that.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
it was always the fastball was my go-to. It's, hey, I'm going to go out here and compete, see if you can hit it, kind of thing.
So you would be what obviously I've read about this an extensive amount, but you would be what they call kind of a power pitcher. Would you describe yourself as that?
I would say it's interesting, especially with all the analytics and metrics, is my fastball isn't overpowering. It sits in the low 90s. I'm like 90, 92. I might pop a 93, but
Hmm.
the my release height combined with the vertical break and my extension, all of that stuff makes it play up a couple miles an hour. So I'm not heaving it in there at 100
Right,
or
right.
98 as you see a lot of guys nowadays, but just the metrics of it have always played a few miles an hour above what it truly is.
And that is a whole different level of ball game. Analytics and stuff with the RPMs and stuff. I hear, one of my favorite pitchers is Tarek Skubal. He won the Triple Crown, I'm sure you know. And just hearing him talk about on podcasts like RPM and how much the spin on his changeup and his slider just makes it that much difference. It's crazy. You
Yeah.
dive too deep as a person that hasn't played baseball, you get lost. So I'm sure that you understand what all that is, which is awesome. It probably helps a lot to understand the whole inner workings of it. So that's great. Thank you for that information. It's really cool to hear the high level baseball IQ. That's pretty neat. Uh, so going back to high school baseball, what do you remember most?
Honestly, what I remember most is just playing in the district semifinal, the district final games where
Hmm.
we're finally able to break through. Our team had been struggling the past couple of years, and then we get everybody that had kind of been working our way up, whether it was the class below us or the class of 2019 when I graduated, and just
Hmm.
getting everybody together and winning a district championship. Obviously, we didn't get much further than that. We lost in the very next game, but I mean, just having kind of that culmination of holding that district championship after, like I had mentioned, with all of the travel ball players that have played together to school ball to kind of building that team chemistry and being able to celebrate, kind of taking that next step with the team.
So and that must have felt like such a big weight off your shoulders. I know for me, in Caledonia, it was always, a pressure a little bit of making the playoffs, for football, obviously. And I'm sure for you guys getting that off your back to finally hold the division, oh, excuse me, sorry. To hold the division trophy must have felt amazing. And take us through a little bit about your emotions during that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I recall correctly, it was kind of a quick game. I can't remember if we mercied them or if we just kind of laid it to them a little bit, I guess, laid the wood on them, I guess. I don't know. But I mean, there was just a lot of emotions with. I had some family there. I had some friends from out of town that played at Allendale, West Ottawa, some more west. But just being able to celebrate with everybody, especially the senior year. I mean, at that point, you're out of school at that point as a senior because you
Mhm.
get out a little early. So it was kind of I don't know, like a full circle moment, obviously before taking that next step to
Right.
next level, but just competing with everybody kind of for what happened to be one last time, basically.
Well, hey, Caledonia has a lot to be thankful for, and Andrew Taylor is definitely one of them. I'll tell you that. That is awesome that you could give back to the community the way you did with the district title, and it's just like I said, from Caledonia community, we thank you very much, Andrew. So what what led to you committing to Central Michigan? You won the district title, so I'm sure there's a lot of obviously we're going to talk about it now, but family, how much did they play effect in your CMU commit? And, just take us through that whole process.
Yeah, it was a relatively short process, I guess. Not necessarily just deciding on Central Michigan, but I didn't really take off, I guess, until it was I played fall ball for the first time, my going into my senior year.
Okay.
Obviously before the title and everything, but I wasn't able to just because I had played basketball in high school my freshman and
Hmm.
sophomore, junior year. So it didn't allow me time for that.
Hmm.
So I started to take off a little bit during fall ball. I was only top in, I think, 84, 85, would have been my junior year going into my senior year.
Hmm.
I get to fall ball and I'm working with this one pitching coach, and he just kind of says something that clicks with me. He's like, I'm a big, tall, long lever kind of a guy. Let's use that to our advantage. So he told me, he's like, all right, I just want you to stride out as far as you can and try to reach to the catcher, basically. And that was
Hmm.
really the one thing that just clicked with me immediately and kind of helped me jump from the mid 80s to I ended up topping, I was like 90, 92 that fall. So it was, obviously I've been very blessed and I have nothing to complain about in that aspect. Just not many people make that jump. So blessed is kind of the one word that comes from there. But from there, it kind of took off. I had some interest from a lot of the MAC schools like Kent State, obviously Central Michigan, Eastern Michigan, Michigan State were a few of the ones to mention. A lot of them were just kind of walk-on positions because I don't know, it was really late in the process. It was like that would have been September, October of 2018 at that point of my senior year.
Wow. Okay.
So deciding on Central Michigan really came down to Kent State and Central Michigan. I took a visit to Central Michigan after a camp up there where I was sitting upper 80s, the 6'5", 165, maybe 175, dripping wet at that point.
Yep.
So a lot of frame to build onto.
Hmm.
Then the next week or the week after that, I went on a visit to Kent State. Um, in terms of family, that was kind of, I wouldn't say the major deciding factor. I would say a lot of prayer and talking with the Lord, as faith is very important in my life, kind of helped me decide on Central Michigan, as well as the hour and a half drive to Central Michigan or 5.5 hour drive to Kent State. So
Right.
obviously a big difference there. It's not so much of a
Yeah.
weekend getaway as it is like a full week, Thanksgiving, Christmas kind of a trip.
Right.
So I would say just a lot of talking with my family, praying helped me decide on Central Michigan, which kind of made me feel at home. They offered me a scholarship. I will say though, I need to put this out there because the head coach came from Northwood to Central Michigan, and he was
Okay.
recruiting me at Northwood, but I didn't know if I necessarily wanted to go into business. And when he went to Central, the assistant coaches all came with him, and the kind of older coach, Tom Winsky is his name.
Okay.
They were deciding, they're like, I don't know if we can give this ATA, this Taylor kid, a shot. But Winsky was like, come on, he's 6'5", like there's plenty of frame to work with. Give him a shot. So I still credit to this day, and he knows it. He always brings it up too that I am Tom Winsky's recruit, not Bishel's recruit.
No.
But that's just a little bit of how I kind of came to decide on Central Michigan.
That is absolutely crazy. That sounds like something made out of a book, to be completely honest with you. Yeah, I was actually recruited at this other school, and then he transferred over to this other school, and they weren't necessarily really recruiting me hard. And then he came in, and well, then I was recruited pretty hard.
Done
He
deal.
pounded the table for me. So that is absolutely awesome. And going back to your faith, that's such a big thing for so many athletes. And I am so proud that you can speak about it as freely as you can. It's a big part of athletes' lives, and that's awesome. I'm glad that you can speak with him like that, and
Yeah.
it's great. Praise. So
Yeah,
that's all
definitely.
I can really say. And praise the Lord for you coming to Caledonia because it's great. It's just awesome to have you here. So talking about CMU, you had arguably, you said it yourself. You weren't very highly recruited for Central at the time. So what was kind of the mindset, going into your freshman year up there?
Yeah, it was an interesting dynamic. The first time as being a freshman, you're away from home. There are a lot of distractions that can kind of take you away from that, I guess. I just kind of had to do my best to keep my head on straight, and they did a very good job with 6:30 a.m. workouts. That keeps you pretty honest early in the morning. So honestly, I would say the biggest factor was for me was just hanging out with my roommates, hanging out with my teammates, kind of just sticking along with them the best that I could, and just keeping myself kind of on that track. And then obviously freshman year with my true freshman year with COVID and all that was canceled, but it was
Mhm.
a great journey from there.
And that's a whole nother, that's like as an athlete, what was that like? The world shutting down your, freshman year. Like that must have been kind of a crazy time. What were trainings like in that time?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was a very interesting, like you said, time. That's for sure.
Yes.
It was a lot of filling up your backpack with some weights, or hopping downstairs to the weight bench we had downstairs, or doing push-ups on the ground, doing squats on the ground, lunging, just kind of little body weight workouts that if you do enough of it will kind of give you a pump and all that. We did have our strength coach would send us workouts on either WhatsApp or GroupMe or one of those kind of messenger apps to all of us. It's like a dynamic warm up, some plyometrics, and then like a true workout. Kind of if you had access to weights versus if you didn't. I had a
Okay.
little bit access to weights, so I could kind of pick and choose. But obviously, as you know, being in Michigan, there wasn't a whole lot open at that point. Versus I'm talking to some of my other buddies like in Ohio or more down south and or Indiana. They're like, yeah, it was open. I could go work out wherever. I'm like, okay, well,
I
definitely a little adversity, but
You're like, I really wish I could kind of, have that workout room that I,
yes.
would, yeah, it was definitely a change for a lot of athletes. So it's really interesting to hear you talk about just, other people in other states. Well, I mean, they pretty much had a leg up on you at that point because of everything that was going on. So it's kind of crazy to hear that perspective of it, but very interesting. So going in, obviously that freshman season, you're not your true freshman season, but the freshman season in which COVID wasn't a factor. Take us through, you know, going out there and doing what you did. How did you do it? I get that's the easiest way I can describe it. How did you do what you did on the mound that year?
Yeah, honestly, it was just a lot of, I would say, trust with not only my teammates behind me, but also the head coach, kind of giving me an opportunity. I mean, going back to the year before, as you'd mentioned, giving me an opportunity in my freshman campaign to make, I believe, two relief appearances and then two starts. Like
Mhm.
in that, the four appearances that I had, I was already becoming a starter, and that was just due to hard work. I guess I could accredit that too, and kind of listening to the coaches and trusting my teammates. And the one thing that my coach was always Bishel was always great at was he said he was going to put the best defensive lineup behind you. We could scrape together runs somehow, whether we're putting up one or two runs, three runs, whatever. Maybe might that year might explode. We might have put up four or five. That was kind of an explosion
Right.
for some offenses, certain weekends. But I would say just the confidence in him kind of instilled the confidence in myself through the head coach, through my teammates, of they're going to make a play behind me. And combined with it was a very veteran lineup. Like we had
Mhm.
a fifth year behind the dish, a fifth year in center field, right field, left field. We had a senior,
Wow.
um, at third base, a senior at second base, a senior
Wow.
at first base. So like we had a lot of the veteran pieces to where it's like they've been around the block. They've kind of done the a thing or two in the collegiate game, so
Hmm.
they know what they're doing. They know how to when that frustration does arise in me and they can tell on the mound. All it takes is one quick second for them to come to talk to me, and they know how to calm me down, or they knew how to calm me down immediately. So it
That
was just
is crazy.
the confidence, and yeah, everybody else in me was like, "Oh yeah, you can't do this thing."
That's crazy. Like I didn't realize you had that many upperclassmen behind you during that year. That's gotta, like you said, help so much, having that trust that, well, these guys have been around the block with the game, at this level for a long time. So, I can throw my best stuff when I want to, I can have that confidence to throw what I need to throw in the right moment. That is crazy. I did not realize you had that many upperclassmen, and that's so cool.
Yeah,
I'm sure they gave you some good, good tips and stuff as a freshman. I'm sure they helped out a lot, and that's awesome to hear. So, if I remember right, too, Andrew, you might have broken a record that year. I don't remember. Do you happen to remember breaking a record or something? I think I heard about it in the news, but
uh, I don't know, maybe. Yeah, breaking the strikeout record was pretty cool, especially against Notre Dame. After I broke the record, we don't need to talk about what happened after that. I may or may
right.
not have given up 7 earned runs, but other than that, no, it was very cool. It was very, like I said, it was a testament to my head coach, to my family, to the teammates behind me, supporting me, no matter what we were going through that year.
How does it feel knowing that forever and ever, until it's broken again, which probably won't happen very soon because that was crazy. But what does it feel like to have your name enshrined, with Central Michigan like this forever? Truthfully, I mean, you're always going to be on the leaderboard there. So that, I mean, what does that feel like to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's just I don't know, it's just a blessing from the Lord, really, from all the hard work and such that He instilled in me from my parents teaching me as a little kid to going up there and just, like I said, all the confidence in everybody else kind of helped me go out there and kind of dominate in that year especially. But yeah, it's just a blessing from the Lord, that's for sure.
That's awesome. I'm gonna test you real quick. Do you remember the number?
125.
That's awesome. I was gonna say, I'm sure he's got it memorized in the back of his head like that. So that's awesome. Like I said, everybody, this Andrew is the real deal. Like when it comes to everything he's done in his life, I have a fun little story I guess I'll share now. But when I first heard about Andrew, I have a good friend and he's a mutual friend of ours. His name's Walker Reed, and I asked Walker one day. I said, Walker, do you think anybody from Caledonia will ever make it pro? We were young at this point, and he goes, I don't know, but if there's one person, it's probably going to be Andrew Taylor. And I said, who's Andrew Taylor? And he goes, I don't know. I know him really well, and he's got this rockin' curveball. So, do you remember throwing the curveball that much in high school? Not to bring up a different subject, but I have to know.
No, no, I mean, I do. It's definitely something that I had to work on because you can only throw the fastball so long before people pick
Right.
up on it. So yeah, I do remember dropping it in every once in a while.
That's how much does that play into the college game? So obviously high school is one level, but pitching, I've heard your stuff in high school is average in college, and then your stuff in college, if you're really good in college, then your stuff in the MLB is average. So like, how did you manage to keep your game up at each level? What kind of how did that look? Like, how did you keep your curveball in college so relevant?
Yeah, honestly, it was as we kind of talked about. I'm a fastball pitcher. In college, I think my sophomore year, my redshirt freshman year, I was throwing my fastball 80-85% of the time. So like mostly you knew it was coming. Like I said, like you knew it was coming. Here it is, try to hit it kind of a thing. And
Right.
then it was the curveball was just kind of there as like a flick in for a strike or a below dirt for an 0-2 after I go off the high fastball. And it's a whole other different topic with
Right.
tunneling and all that kind of stuff. But it was so relevant because I played it off of the fastball well.
Gotcha. Okay. So yeah, that had a huge effect even at the next level, is what you're saying. Like the
Mhm.
tunneling and stuff, which that's a whole nother conversation. I've
Yeah.
heard Tarek Skubal talk about it I am lost. But obviously we'll have to talk about that on the next one.
There we go.
So let's move forward a little bit. So after your freshman phenom season, what were your goals after that? You broke the strikeout record. What did your goals look like for Andrew Taylor after that?
Yeah. Honestly, there were really two main goals on the baseball level. I would say just gaining velo. It'd be something that I'd always done up to that point. You get to a point where you reach that plateau. I hadn't necessarily seen that yet. So gaining velo, whether that was through some mechanical changes or through weight room changes and putting on weight, because like I said, I mean, at that point I was like 6'5", 205, maybe 210. So like still have a decent amount of weight I could put on the frame.
Mhm,
And then the one thing that scouts had talked to me about was what does the breaking ball look like? Because I had thrown the fastball 80, 85% of the time.
mhm,
So they're like, okay, we know the curveball's there. We know you can kind of throw in the changeup whenever you want to. What is the slider? What is the sweeper? The cutter? Whatever you want to call it. What
mhm,
do those look like? So my main two goals were to throw those a little more, kind of divvy up the
mhm,
chart. So it's
mhm.
not 80, 85%. I think it ended up being 75%. So, not a
Okay.
massive change because obviously that's what had made me successful up until that
Right.
point. So, don't broke it if, or don't change it if it ain't broke.
Right,
So,
right.
yeah, so I would say just those kind of gaining velo, and then spinning the off speed a little more just to kind of show them what I got.
Right. Okay. So you said you talked to scouts during that time though. So, take us a little bit into that. Like, so what, obviously there was more attention after your freshman season. I'm sure, you do that, people are going to notice type of thing. So take us into what scouts kind of talk to you about other than, the off-speed stuff.
Yeah, honestly, I would say each scouting meeting was relatively different. I believe I met with I have a list on my phone. It was either 27 or 28 area scouts that came, would have been fall of my junior academically,
Got
redshirt
it.
sophomore, with all that COVID junk and all that.
Confusing. Confusing.
Yes, yes. So I'll say my third year. So
Okay.
during my third year in that fall, I met with a lot of scouts. They ask you the basic questions like, what's your height? What's your weight? What are your goals? What are you working on? What's the weight what's the throwing
Mhm.
program look like? And then they each kind of had their own individual way to put things
Okay.
in different questions on like, okay, your throwing program looks like this. How would you change it if you were on a 6-day rotation or a 5-day rotation? What does the weight room look like? Here's what the weight room looks like at the next level. Do you think you could adjust to that kind of a thing?
Okay.
So meeting with the scouts definitely made me think like, okay, I can do this thing. Like I was meeting with a couple
Mhm.
scouts a week, whether over a Zoom call or in person at the field when it was a little warmer out. They would come to catch some of the fall ball games, and when it got a little colder, I don't blame them at all. But
Right.
it was yes, it was definitely hard to kind of keep my head on straight at that point. It was more of like, okay, well, I have a meeting, and I got to plan that up with class and plan that up with weightlifting, school, and all that fun stuff. So
Wow.
it was a little bit to manage, but also, I mean, no complaints are told on this end with that.
Right. Yeah, that, is not everything everybody can say is, yeah, I was scouted, professionally. That is so cool, man. And, it's interesting to hear you talk about like what their kind of questions are asking, like you said, the basic stuff, but then they get into, how would you fit kind of in our organization type of thing. It's interesting to hear that. And just a totally different side of things that we, the average people, don't get to see. So thank you for that insight. And it's just incredible what you've done. It's crazy, and what led up to you getting drafted by the Houston Astros. So take us into, did they talk to you at all before? Did they talk to you? Like, what was the dynamic leading up to them drafting you in the second round of the MLB draft?
Yeah, I mean, oh man, where do I begin? It was
Right.
a wild time, that's for sure. We kind of had an idea, thank you to my agent, of where each team had kind of slotted me and what they were thinking. Not necessarily. money wise, but like round wise
Sure,
and
sure.
all that fun
Mhm.
stuff. But I talked with the Astros quite a few times. I went out to the draft combine and I met with them out there, and I'll talk more of the analytics and metrics because they're big into all of that fun stuff. That's for sure. Like I said,
Yep.
that's a topic for another day. But
Yes.
so really, it started. Um, like I said, they met with me in the fall. Then I talked with them periodically. Fast forward to the day of the draft, and we had to give my agent like two more contacts just in case for some reason he can't be reached.
Sure.
And I gave him obviously my phone number, my mom's phone number, and then I gave him my dad's phone number too.
Okay.
So we were in church that morning, start church at 9:30 Sunday morning, and it's like right in the middle of the pastor's sermon. And my mom gets a text from I can't remember if it was from my agent or from the Astros scout. He's like, "Hey, here's heads up. The Astros we're asking for your phone number just to keep it on, just to make sure today. In case we're thinking about taking you, that kind of a thing." Didn't really think anything of it. We're like, okay, they're just going through all the necessary precautions in case they can't reach me or my
Mhm.
agent Mark or anything of that sort. Go throughout the rest of the normal day. My heart's going a million miles an hour leading up to the draft, and the first round of the draft, respectfully so, it takes a very long time. So I think it
Right.
was a couple hours for the first round of the draft,
Mhm.
and it gets to be like either 11 or 11:30 at night. I'm used to going to bed at like
You're
9
right.
night. No, I'm
Right.
sitting there on the couch. I'm like, and I get a call from my agent. My heart starts pumping. Yeah, exactly. It starts pumping,
Right.
starts going crazy. And I step out of the room for a second, and he's like, "Hey, I'm just checking up on you. How are you doing? No teams have called yet. You gave me a heart attack here. Come on, man."
Come on. Like right now, seriously? Come on.
Right.
Oh,
Like, haven't
jeez.
heard anything. We talked with a couple other teams. They might be looking at you for day two, which is kind of where most of the teams had slotted me, like a third to 10th round, kind of somewhere in there.
Okay.
And then I get a call like 20 minutes later at 11:50, and I'm expecting him to be like, "Yeah, sorry, like nobody called today. It's not the end of the world. Maybe people will. I'll get some calls overnight, and we'll kind of go from there." But he's like, "The Houston Astros are wondering if you'll take X number of dollars. Like they want to take you with the last pick in the second round." And I was like, "Wow, okay." And I had to think about it. We talked back and forth, kind of what we thought. And I was like, "No, let's counter with this." So we kind of went back and forth a couple times, and he called me, and it was like 11:55 or 56 at that point. So like 3 or 4 minutes before the pick. And he was like, "All right, they're countering with this. They want to give you slot value. We can go back with the number above that, but they might just say no, and then we'll just have to wait for tomorrow." Just thinking, like we're both like, okay, yeah, let's do it. So then at that point, like, I'm sitting there on the couch, and I didn't tell my parents until I got drafted. Like they saw my name kind of pop up on screen, and then showed me up there, and obviously there was a flurry of emotions, laughter, crying, happiness, all kind of the emotions that you can experience within like a few minutes there, to the point where, I just couldn't fall asleep for like 2 or 3 hours after that, where I
That
was getting calls from Houston, um, people all over for obviously, just asking how I'm doing, asking how it feels. I'm like, it feels great, but like it's 12:30 right now. I need to
right.
go to bed.
You're like, I was at church, in the
Yeah,
draft, and like I'm just tired, man. I'm just really
yeah,
tired. It's awesome. I'm super excited. I need sleep. My
yes,
pillow is calling my name. I need it.
absolutely.
Wow, that is so incredible to hear, man. Like that is stuff of dreams. It really is. I can only imagine, like I said, being in that room and feeling that emotion fill that room when you got the call and the counter offers, like your heart's gotta be just pumping, 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 pumping,
Right.
that is so cool to hear that side of things. You just don't get to hear those stories, I feel like. And so thank you so much for sharing your side of the story on that. It's exhilarating, it's adrenaline, it's happiness, it's a lot of different emotions, like you said. So that is fantastic, Andrew. Congratulations, obviously, to you on that whole achievement leading up to that even. But getting
Thank you.
drafted in the second round is incredible. It's something that I could only dream of, and I mean truthfully ever dream of, you know. But yeah, so with that being said, everything that went through it, I'm sure in the back of your mind, did you ever think about, wow, I might be Caledonia's first pro baseball player? Like that, or pro player in general. I don't think anybody from Caledonia's ever played pro.
Yeah, honestly, I hadn't really thought about that. I was kind of just going on my own journey, what I had felt like I said, the Lord had called me to do at that point. I hadn't really thought too much about that. I've always tried to, and struggled with it in a great amount. I've always tried to think of myself as less and him as more than me. So I really haven't thought so much about me, but especially as of late, more of what can I do for him and for his kingdom. So I hadn't really thought a whole lot about to being the first Caledonia pitcher in the pros, and there was one the year right after me too, and Luke Thalen. So
Right. Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, Luke Thalen. I remember that too. I
mhm.
don't know Luke nearly as personal as you, but I would
Yeah.
obviously love to hear his side of some stories too. I'm sure there's some good ones in there. But yeah, Luke also, congratulations to you, Luke. Um, but like I said, it as a community member, it's so cool to see Caledonia having this flurry of success. I mean, you saw obviously their football team went to the state
Yeah.
championship, and with you getting drafted by the Houston Astros, it's like, wow, Caledonia is finally getting that recognition. I feel like it really deserved. Growing up there, we always had this grit to us. We always hear the Lions talk. Everybody lives in Detroit. I mean, lives in Michigan, so this
Mhm.
grit, and I feel like everybody, like you and the football team and everybody that's come through Caledonia just has that little bit of grit to them, and I think that's
Yeah.
what we need. It's awesome to see. So I just wanted to tell you that you got some grit, man. You got some
Absolutely.
grit.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Um, so now we're talking about minor league ball. What did that really look like to you? What was the steps going into that, and how do you think your season went? Starting off in the A ball.
Mhm. Yeah, honestly, I mean, it's a huge step both in competition and in mental process. I would say was kind of the biggest thing that I had learned. Because obviously in college and in high school, all you want to do is win. You just want to win, 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 win as many games as you can, make it to the tournament, keep on winning, playing as long as you can.
Mhm.
You get the pro ball, and it's very individualistic, as they say. It's I want to make it to the big leagues. Is I'm going to work as hard as I can. I'm going to pass you up. Um, so the Houston Astros organization as a whole doesn't necessarily care like a whole lot about the winning aspect as much as they do development, and that's why they've been some of the top developers, at churning out big leaguers over the past
Right.
number of years, ever since they've introduced all this metrics and analytics. So that's kind of where I kind of got my first introduction was through my first year in A ball. It's really about developing those MLB type pitch shapes and having them being very consistent. They use an X and Y axis grid to tell on the vertical movement, the horizontal movement, and basically having them as tight of plot points as you can on your fastball, curveball, slider, whatever it may be.
Wow.
So that's kind of what they use low A for. The A
Okay.
ball for is to just develop those kind of pitches. And
Mhm.
then as you kind of climbed up, as in my next year when I got that promotion to the next level in Asheville, was it's more about all right, let's get a little bit of that velo. Like you have the pitch shapes. We know how each one of your pitches are going to move. It's not going to be one isn't going to take off and one isn't just going to spin in there to get, absolutely hammered.
Right.
So we had those consistent pitch shapes. We had those MLB type pitch shapes. Let's get a little bit more velo. And then generally speaking, from there on out, obviously age and other factors play a little bit into it. But
Mhm.
once you get above that level, it's more of like you got all the stuff. Go out there and compete. Like some guys, have the intangibles of like, yeah, they can throw 100. Like some guys are like I may never be able to throw 100, but I'm able to locate the ball wherever I want, and I'm able to throw certain pitch shapes harder than others. And so really, it was just a big introduction to metrics kind of, and you know, nowadays on every MLB scoreboard, they have the vertical movement, the horizontal
Yep.
movement, the RPMs, and everything.
Yeah,
So
that
that's
that's
kind of my intro.
that's I was gonna say that's the big one, like I said, is if RPMs. I always hear RPMs, RPMs, RPMs. Every pitcher's talking about it right now. And like it's just crazy to hear, the spin rates and what that does to the ball. It's so above my head. I can't even understand it on a small level, I don't think, but that I'm sure that, in the Houston Astros and you understand it a lot better than I do. So obviously you've got electric stuff, man. I believe that you've been this successful this far. It's got to be pretty electric stuff to get you this far. That's my opinion. So obviously that's awesome. And kind of last thing I want to talk about with your minor league career. What was that first step on the mound like for you? Like, what was the emotions? What was going through your head?
Ooh, I would say more than anything, nervous, man. I was shaking like crazy out there. I was getting in front, like at Central Michigan, obviously not a huge school. When I threw against Notre Dame and then at Florida, there were quite a few people at those games, which is cool to pitch in front. But like
Right.
minor league crowd, it feels more like you're out there by yourself, I guess I would say. I mean, you always are as a pitcher, but as I
Right.
had mentioned about at CMU, they put the best defenders out there no matter what. There wasn't any, not many politics going on behind the scenes of like we have to play this player because he signed for more than the next guy, all
Got it.
that
Right.
fun stuff. But I mean, it was a lot of just nerves, happiness, a lot of almost overthrowing the catcher on the very first warm up pitch coming out of the bullpen, and yeah, so there was this, that, and everything in between.
Everything in between. And yeah, you had mentioned that the Astros actually have a kind of unique training for pitchers. So you said you came out of the bullpen to start?
Yeah, so the Astros do, they call it tandems, where they keep, well, it'd be five starting pitchers, or I'm sorry,
Okay.
10 starting pitchers. So we
Wow.
play Tuesday through Sunday. And obviously, if you start Tuesday, you'll throw Sunday, but one player will start the game and they'll go 3 to 4 innings at a 75 to, as you move your way up to an 85 pitch count. And then the
Got it.
next guy will come in and throw the next 3, 4, 5, whatever it may be with the allotted pitch count that he has. So it's very unique to the Astros. I know I've noticed a few other teams do it. I enjoy it because then if you're, especially if you're throwing twice a week, you're throwing against the same team, once on Tuesday, one on Sunday. It kind of gives you that more time to prepare for one of the starts, kind of notice what their tendencies are, and have a full week to watch them. Especially if you're starting the first game coming out of the bullpen, it's like, okay, I know what to
Okay.
expect, and let's shut this thing down.
That is, like I said, crazy to see. Like I'm sure that the vibes are completely different coming out of the pen versus starting, different, lead up to that moment. And so I'm sure you gotta kind of adjust a little bit, which is really cool to see. And obviously you've got all the talent in the world, man. You can adjust, I think, to anything that's thrown at you. So that's awesome to hear. And like I said, cool training regimen for the Astros. I haven't heard that before, obviously. So
Yeah.
it's really cool to see. So, I wanted to close up here and just talk about something fun. I let the athletes kind of talk about some of their personal interests. So, I hear you're a pretty big, Michigan fan. So how do you feel about their football team or their basketball team or their baseball team?
Well, I mean, we talked about Caledonia football a little bit ago. Obviously that Belleville QB is going somewhere, and he obviously that's been the talk of the town.
Yep.
He flipped to Michigan, so obviously, I mean, I'm excited for the future with that program. I'm excited for the basketball program if they can figure out their turnovers and not turn it over 15, 20 times a game. Not
Yep.
really a recipe for success, but yeah, no, I'm excited. Um, for
It
the future and all the programs. And obviously, my dad was he graduated there with an engineering degree, so I've kind of been born and raised to bleed maize and blue.
Maize and blue, and I've noticed a reoccurring theme. A lot of the athletes that come on here actually are all, for the most part, Michigan fans, which is crazy. There might be a correlation there, Michigan fans, being good athlete. I don't know. I'm not going to be the one to say it, but it might be there. I can't put it out there. So, but yeah, obviously, seeing firsthand Bryce Underwood, yeah, Michigan's in a good spot. They're in a really
Yeah.
good spot. I mean, that kid is amazing. He is really, really talented with his legs, with his arm. It's crazy. And then, talking about Michigan basketball, they've got, two guys that can very well average 15 plus a game, at the
Yeah.
4 and the 5. And they can rotate the 4 and the 5 between each other, which is just crazy. I mean, those guys scare, I mean, a lot of teams. So, it's definitely Michigan's got a lot of things to be proud of and a lot of things looking up for them. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see, what happens next year. Do they start Bryce Underwood as a freshman? I would
Right.
guess yes, but Michigan doesn't always do things the tradition that, the untraditional way, I guess, which is starting a freshman QB. JJ McCarthy didn't start as a freshman.
Hmm.
So it's kind of one of those things. I'm guessing he'll start, but who knows? It's
Yeah.
definitely gonna be an interesting time. So obviously, Andrew, thank you so much for coming on to take your time out of your day to come on and talk. And obviously, it's been a blessing, man, to have you in our community, to have you as a former classmate with me. It's awesome to see Scott's having success at the next level, and you're gonna go far in your career, man. You've got the right mindset, the right nuts and bolts up there. So I have no problem saying that one day you're gonna make it to the pros, man. I really do believe it. So obviously, thank you so much. And for everybody watching, I will put Andrew's contact information on the screen here. Follow him on Instagram. He's one heck of a guy. He's really, really a great human being. And like I said, I will go ahead and get this video on as soon as I can for you guys. And thank you for watching. We'll catch you on the next one.
Thank you for listening to the Fourth Quarter Finish podcast. Please like and subscribe. To support the athletes that are featured, check out their personal links down below. Fourth Quarter Finish, hard-hitting takes.